Good evening, everyone. I see we are live on YouTube, so I'd like to welcome everyone to Prescott's Town Council meeting for Monday, May 3rd, 2021. I'd like to call the meeting to order and move right on to item 2 on our agenda this evening. That's the approval of tonight's agenda. And I would introduce the recommendation that the agenda for the council meeting of May 3rd, 2021 be approved as presented. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Ostrander, seconded by Councillor Young. Any comments on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thanks, everyone. Motion is carried. Item 3, declarations of interest. Does anyone have a declaration to make this evening from council? Seeing no. Item 4, presentations. We do have a presentation tonight. It's our annual Rideau St. Lawrence Utilities update from our representative of the board, Hugh George. He has not joined us yet. We hopefully will get back to him a little later in the evening. So we're just going to move along past that item on the agenda and hopefully get back to it. Item 5, delegations. No delegations tonight. Item 6, minutes of the previous council meetings. 2 items under there. 6.1 is our meeting minutes from the special council meeting held April 19th, 2021. Recommendation reads that the special council minutes dated April 19th, 2021 be accepted as presented. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Young. Any discussion on that set of minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. And also under 6.2, we have meeting minutes from that same night, April 19th. Recommendation reads that the council minutes dated April 19th, 2021 be accepted as presented. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Ostrander, seconded by Councillor Shankar. Any discussion on that set of minutes? Seeing no, then I will call the vote and welcome Councillor McConnell. Call the vote on that. All in favor? Councillor McConnell, we're just, if you're on there, we're just starting item 7. Although I see you kind of frozen there, so I'm not sure you're actually connected or not. Hopefully you can hear us anyways. So on item 7, communications and petitions, 2 items pulled out for communications tonight. 7.1 is the invitation to the Eastern Ontario part of the Municipal Code of Conduct consultation. Did staff want to comment on that? I read over the report. They're just looking for someone to attend that virtual meeting. What is it, May 20th, I believe?
Yes, I believe that's correct. So they're just looking for a member of council to represent Prescott and go from there. Thank you.
And there also is there's an online consultation form, is there not, too, that's in that? So everyone, regardless of who's on that call or not, everyone will have their chance to give their say on this review of the code of conduct for the province for municipal officials. I'm willing to do it unless somebody else really wants this, but throw it out there if anyone else wants to take this. Okay, I'll do it, I guess, as a head of council. And if anyone has any comments on this, feel free to please send them directly to me on this. And of course, there is the that consultation bit with the login. I think it's all an online questionnaire, is it not, Mr. Armstrong?
Yes, it is. Depending on how verbose you want to be in the questions and the answers, then it can take anywhere from a couple minutes to 15 or 20.
Great. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to that. And I know the province is planning some pretty extensive consultations on this, so I'm sure there'll be added feedback on this. I see Hugh's on the call now, but we'll just finish up with the communications and petitions. Thanks for joining us, Hugh. We'll move on to your presentation right after we wrap 7.2 here, if that's good with you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Fine with me.
And 7.2 is the Fort Erie resolution regarding federal government transparency with regards to plans to open the Canada-US border. I asked staff to put that on. I got this just later last week from Fort Erie. The mayor there, Wayne Redekop, is a member of that border mayors group that I've mentioned a few times. And we haven't had a meeting of the actual full group in some time. I've been in communication with the leader of the group is Mayor Christian Provenzano of Sault Ste. Marie. And I have been in communication with him so we can get a meeting and sort of discuss this. But Fort Erie did send this out, I think, to either the entire province or all the border the border communities. So I wanted to make sure that we got this. We don't have to act on it tonight, of course. We could bring it back in a couple of weeks if everybody just wants to read it and digest it. But if you haven't had a chance to really look at it thoroughly, it's just essentially calling on the federal government to start coming forward with plans on the reopening of the U.S. border, whether it's by phases and so forth, and just be transparent on the process, and to involve the municipalities and people in the border communities particularly. So I did want to raise it tonight, and I'd love to see us do a similar resolution, as we normally do with this, but we could wait on it or discuss it this evening. So I'll just open it up for comments, questions on that tonight. Councillor Ostrander, then Councillor Jansman, after that very awkward silence.
Nobody wants to go first. I read the motion and the full article there this afternoon, and it's pretty extensive. I think it's a culmination of thoughts that have come together as far as wanting the border looked at a little more seriously, and certain aspects of it, sort of digested and taken apart and kind of looked at. So no, if and when we are looking at it formally, I would certainly support it. It's well worded, and it covers a lot of territory.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ostrander. Councillor Jansman.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I would be in support of a similar resolution as well. I think it's time, and I do like the idea that they involve the municipalities in the planning process for the renewal of opening it back up. So I would support it.
Thank you. Any other comments this evening on, we could move on this evening and sponsor a similar resolution and bring it back to the next meeting and just staff direction to bring it back. I think that's pretty standard. What we've been doing is direction to bring it back. So is everyone okay with that this evening? And would anyone care to make that motion for staff direction to bring it back at our next meeting? See Councillor Burton. I think Councillor Shankar had his hand up first for the seconder. Any further comments on this tonight? And I will note that I expect to hear back from some of the other border mayors in the not too distant future on this. And Minister Bill Blair with the federal government's been incredibly open. We've had a number of meetings with him where he has been very open and transparent with the government's thoughts on the border closings, and also very, very much encouraged the municipalities to get involved and to get their feedback. So it'll be interesting to see what we do get back from this. I do expect we'll hear back fairly quickly, because there have to be plans starting in the works there as we move into May. So with that, the motion is on the table. I'll call the question then. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. And with that, we'll move back to item 4.1 now that we've got Hugh on the line. So formally welcome Hugh George, our longtime and very long-serving and dedicated service for a lot of years, Hugh. But thanks for representing us on the RSL board for so long. And I'll just turn it over to you tonight for your presentation.
Well, thank you, Mayor Todd, and good evening, councillors and all other participants. First of all, my apologies for not popping on right at 6. I was here working on something else and realized, boom, it's 6 o'clock or 5 past. I would normally, John Walsh attends these updates with me. He's not able to attend tonight, so I'm on my own. I put together a few notes just very briefly. I won't drag it on and on. We'll start with the COVID-19. Unfortunately, it's almost impossible to have a discussion around anything without talking about COVID-19. I'm probably, like everyone else, a little tired of it, but it is what it is. We're moving ahead. I'm not sure, Matthew, if you're able to forward the presentation, but if not, I'll quickly summarize it.
You'd like me to share it on the screen right now?
Oh, certainly, that'd work.
Okay.
Beautiful. So there we go, the opening statement. Next page. We'll talk about, as the first page said, the COVID-19 response. Unfortunately, that has to be on almost any agenda that we deal with in these times. We'll talk a bit about the financial results and about the imminent departure of the longtime CEO and president of the utility. The first two pages, first two slides talk about the COVID-19, particularly the provincial response on the first two pages. And I'm not going to go into the details of all those provincial responses. You know, what they did was they extended the disconnection notice, disconnection moratorium multiple times. That's an important point, and I'll circle back to that when we're talking about some of the other issues. The OEB also issued guidance on how the utility was supposed to track and keep and account for the various impacts of the COVID situation. That still hasn't been clearly resolved, although they, at the beginning of last year, or essentially March of last year, they came out with some rules on, or some guidelines on how to collect the costs associated with the COVID-19 response, but they have never really defined what to do with those costs. So for now, they're just being accrued. The OEB, through the past year and a bit, have frozen or changed the rates at least 5 times. Sometimes on the based on the desires of the government, extended through the OEB, but also there were normal rate changes in there. So RSL had to deal with at least 5 times changing the rates. And that may not sound like a big deal, but there's a lot of accounting and there's a lot of work that goes into changing the bills, changing the format of the bills, changing the actual calculations and making sure they're right. And to do that almost every other month is really quite a task. The OEB also had to establish monthly liquidity reporting requirements because the COVID situation had an impact on RSL's liquidity, as it did on the liquidity of all the utilities in the province, because the government changed the rates. They also changed the point number 1, the disconnection rules. So last year they initiated a disconnection moratorium, and that was extended through until early October, and then it was put back in place for December 1st, I believe it was, through to this spring, and it's been extended again until the 1st of May. Now, I didn't find out if it's been extended past that. But what that means in terms of cash flow is that when people, when you're not allowed to disconnect the customers that don't pay, and you're not allowed to limit their power consumption, they get electricity for free. And that's a nice thing, of course, if people are in need in times of turmoil like the COVID situation has generated. But there are also some that take advantage of that. And the accounts receivable, although they fluctuate, they've essentially gone up 10% over the past year. And that's a big number. That's a $170,000 increase, more or less on average over the last year. So that's the OEB recognized that there was a liquidity issue because of their new rules and put in place some new reporting requirements. Next slide, please. And again, I won't go into the details of this, but the government also initiated as it says, a COVID-19 energy assistance program for residential customers and for small businesses. It wasn't a big dollar handout, and those costs weren't borne by the utility, but the administration of all those items that I've just talked about has been borne by the utility, and that has been a real strain on all of the people working in the business, and it is to the credit of the people there that they've managed to work through that quite well. Next slide, please. The The impact of, aside from the various regulatory changes and new rules and guidelines that were put in place over the last year and a half, RSL had to consider when the COVID situation arose at the beginning of last year, they had two key considerations. First of all, as a sole supplier, basically a monopoly institution, it's their responsibility to ensure the security of electricity supply. They didn't have any, like a private business, we can shut down or decide not to supply customers and do what's to our advantage. The considerations when RSL looked at managing the COVID situation were security of supply and the safety of the employees. And in a nutshell, the results have been good. There have been no positive cases of COVID amongst the RSL employees, and no impact on the operation of the business. I'll say no impact on the operation of the business from a point of view of no supply disruptions. I mean, there may have been lightning storms or power outages, but nothing that was caused by the COVID situation. So that's been again, to the credit of the management at the RSL, they've done a really good job there. So the impact, though, and one of the reasons I outlined what was required by the provincial government and the OEB, it increased the management workload significantly. They made significant changes to the work processes. They split their crews. On the operations side, they split the crews. They make the electricians, the linemen, take individual vehicles, or if there's two in a vehicle, of course, they have to wear masks. They instituted work from home processes. Typically, there's one manager, be it Jack or John Walsh, Peter Souls or Daryl, in the office at one time, with typically one of the other administrative employees. So it's increased their workload. They managed to work from home. It's also a lonelier process, I would say. It does, when you see that in action, you'll see that it kind of takes the soul out of the business. In a bank, for example, nobody really notices that they're all working from home, because you might say that banks are soulless, but that's not the case with Rideau St. Lawrence utilities. They've had to make those changes in the way their work processes are carried out. They've also instituted a drop box at the front door. They have had to close off access to the office, direct access to the office, and that's something that's very difficult, because part of Rideau St. Lawrence's culture is that they belong to the municipalities and to Fortis, but largely to the municipalities that are the key shareholders in this business. So they are very, very much a community enterprise, much like the credit unions used to be years and years ago. So it's difficult for them to close and lock the door and talk through email or whatever, but not have that direct contact with the people that essentially own the business, right? The residents of the various towns. So that has it's worked for them in terms of maintaining the electricity supply and maintaining a good operation, but it has been very demanding, I would say, of the people that work there. Not unlike any other businesses, not unlike, of course, the municipality, the same deal. You have to deal with these things, but it's worth noting that while it's been successful, it has been I think a difficult time for them. The COVID-19 impacts, of course, aside from the management workload and the work processes, as I mentioned earlier, there was a pretty significant increase to the accounts receivable. It sucked up quite a bit more cash. And that's one of the reasons that the dividend was not paid out last year. Next slide, please. That leads us into the financial results. Just kind of a quick synopsis. In 2019, income was about 157,000. Typically, that dividend, the 2019 dividend, would be paid in early 2020, roughly May, June. There was no dividend paid last year due to those cash flow concerns. We recognized early on that the moratorium on payments would have a result on disconnections rather, would have a direct result on the level of accounts receivable, and it did. Peter Souls and John worked diligently to do what they could to stay on top of that number and to make sure that the delinquent amounts didn't get out of hand, but it still resulted in an increase. Excuse me. That was the primary reason for the decision not to pay out a dividend, because it would have meant borrowing money or using the line of credit to pay out a dividend. And that was one of the issues that was highlighted by the OEB when they set up the deferral accounts to track costs and incremental costs associated with COVID, was that they would look very unfavorably on companies that made dividend payments while they were increasing their borrowings to, essentially, if they were borrowing to pay dividends, the government would look really unfavorably on their accounting for COVID costs. So that was the other piece of the pie that led to the decision eventually to not pay a dividend. Initially, it was deferred, and then it was decided that it couldn't be done. I will say, not speaking out of school here, but the 2020 preliminary results are much more promising in terms of the net income, but I can't prejudge what the 2021 dividend payout, that is, the 2020 results are much better. We expect they look much better, the preliminary results, but I can't say what they are. The final results, MNP is the accountant that Rideau St. Lawrence has engaged for many years. The results should be coming out. The final results will be this month, but we don't have the final results yet. So there is a ray of hope there. I think that I'm hopeful that there will be a dividend payout in 2021 based on the 2020 results. And as always, when we talk about financial results, regardless of whether the company shows a large profit or not, there is what we call a hidden dividend for the shareholders of the company. There's lower rates than Hydro One. So if you're living outside of the town limits of Prescott, your hydro rates will be higher than they are distribution portion of it, not the electricity portion, but the distribution portion will be lower in Prescott than it is just north of town. There are local jobs and employment, and Rideau St. Lawrence does make a conscious effort to try to support local suppliers whenever those resources or those supplies are available in the area. So I still think, I have said it in the past, that Rideau St. Lawrence is a well-run utility. It is a very well-run utility. It ranks in the top quartile for almost all of the measures that the OEB puts out in terms of electricity reliability and the financial results as well, and stability, those kind of things. It is a very well-run utility, and it does pay both hidden dividends and real dividends to the shareholders. We had intended, the board at the beginning of last year had set out an agenda to work with the president and CEO, John Walsh, to review basically do a strategic review of the operations and to look for ways to improve the results of the corporation. They had a good year last year. It looks like they had a good year. There was a approved rate increase that came into effect in November, although it was initially slated for earlier in the year. It didn't get implemented because of the COVID situation. It was supposed to go in May of last year. It didn't start until November. And they're in the process of completing their 2021 rate review, which should lead to, again, an adjustment of the rates that Rideau St. Lawrence is allowed to charge. So again, the results look more promising again for the coming year or two. But nonetheless, there was the intent by the board to look at a strategic review of the company and look for ways to improve the return. Not that it was a bad return, but it wasn't. It had been marginally declining for a few years, and that's something that the board was concerned about on a long-term basis, not on a short-term basis. But, that is something that we expect when the COVID situation is over, and with a new leader at RSL, that will be something that will again be put to the forefront of the board's agenda. Next slide, please. So the other big but sad point that we need to talk about is that John Walsh, who is the president and CEO of Rideau St. Lawrence, and he has been for slightly more than 20 years now, and he was involved with the municipal utility in Cardinal prior to the formation of Rideau St. Lawrence. He has announced his retirement this summer. And all I can say is that I have the greatest respect for John. He is a very, very good CEO. And his contribution to RSL really, it can't be overstated. He really has been instrumental in the success of the corporation and the steady but very thoughtful management of the company. As a board member, as Mayor Todd alluded to, I've been a board member on behalf of the town of Prescott for maybe 12 years now, I think. And John's steady hand at the helm has really been extremely valuable. That said, though, things change and we need to adapt. He's certainly paid his dues, so he really deserves a retirement, and he's definitely earned it through the many years of service. So he's moving on. He's leaving a very solid management team with Daryl in operations and Peter Souls on the financial side. So he has a really steady team. What the board has done is struck a hiring committee to lead the replacement activity. I volunteered to be one of the members in that activity. I felt that's one of the most important things that we're going to do in many, many years. The other being the strategic review of operations, which I will also be a part of. Those two things are really important. But right now, we're dealing with, we hope, the end of COVID times and the replacement of John Walsh. The other two board members that are involved in that activity are Scott Bryce, who's the chairman, and Don Gibson, who is also a board member and representative of Edwardsburg Cardinal. So what we've done quite some time ago, basically very shortly after John made clear his desire to retire, we looked at two seriously and three different avenues of hiring activity. We ended up not doing it internally, but selecting Sartor and Associates. The reason for that is that they have a really good track record in the municipal, I'll call it the municipal utility, the utilities like Rideau St. Lawrence. They've been doing that in that sphere of activity for quite some time. They know the players. They are able to understand the requirements of a position like this. They've been very, very professional. So where we're at now with it is that we have 6, and I haven't seen the candidates yet. I saw a preliminary list a week ago, and we were supposed to get the profiles of 6 quite strong candidates this coming week. So either end of this week or early next, we'll have the top 6, if you will. And from what I saw in a very, very cursory overview of those candidates, it looks like there's some pretty strong people in there. And that's, it's critical in a smaller enterprise like Vito St. Lawrence that the senior guy be really on his game. So this is a really important activity. John is going to be very difficult to replace, but not impossible to replace. So that's where we're at with that. It's I could go on and on about how good a CEO he's been, but that was then and this is now, and what we're dealing with is how to best replace him. So those are the really the key things that we're looking at right now. Questions?
Thanks very much, Hugh, for that detailed report. And of course, I think we've mentioned it in the past, but it's a good time to mention it again to thank Jack Walsh for all the great work he's done here over the years. He's always been a superb representative and a great guy overall too. Just a real class act and a gentleman every way around, both professional in the way he conducts himself with the business, but also within the community. So he'll be a huge loss overall. And I know we'll move on and have a good replacement. It sounds it's well in the works, but he'll be impossible to actually replace.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I'm going to miss him. That's the bottom line. He was a great CEO, and I was happy having him at the helm on your behalf. He really did a good job for you guys. But
yeah, he absolutely did. Never any complaints or concerns here. So I'll open up for questions, and I see the hand of Ray Young asking to speak. So Councillor Young, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hugh. You said the accounts receivable went up 10%.
Yes.
It's gone up to $170,000.
No, it's gone up from 1.7 million roughly to 1.87.
I was afraid you were going to say that. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a pretty good chunk of money, and
Yeah.
and led to as I said, the dividend being deferred.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ray. Other comments, questions for Mr. George this evening? Not seeing any, so we'll move along. And I want to thank you again, Hugh, for all your service as well. You've always been a great representative for us on the board as well. So thanks so much for coming this evening and presenting the update. And of course, it's always disappointing when you see that with the financials, the dividend, but we knew that was coming. And it's been a tough year for everyone. So it's just another way where we've seen the challenges that we've all faced. So thanks again for coming forward this evening, and good to see you as well, and stay well.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone. I would like to do it in person. These Zoom meetings are okay, but anyways, thanks again for the opportunity. Anytime any of you have questions, just give me a shout. Happy to answer them, and I will keep you posted, Mayor Todd, about the progress of the selection of John's replacement.
Sure. Thank you very much. And again, take care, stay well through all this, the pandemic, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Good. Thanks. Have a great evening, everyone.
You too.
Take care now.
Okay, moving along, we're on to item 8, consent reports this evening. As always, we bundle these together. Tonight, all we have, though, is 8.1, the information package. Under separate cover, recommendation that all items listed under the consent report section of the agenda tonight be accepted as presented. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Shankar, seconded by Councillor Ostrander. Any comments, questions on the information package tonight? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. 9 committee reports, nothing on the agenda tonight. 10 mayor's portion of the evening, just some real quick comments. Wanted to thank all of council for the great teamwork and everything on the arena drive that actually came to a very successful, I won't say completion, but we're a long ways down the road now with the announcement last Wednesday of the federal and provincial grants. I do see now it is out in the Recorder and Times. I just noticed it a few minutes ago that the naming rights for the arena, that's now gone public. The fundraising committee led by Judy Barry and David Beattie really wanted to get that out in the wake of the grant announcements last week. So I see that is public, that it will be the Elaine Chartrand Center. I want to really thank the Chartrand family for this incredibly generous donation for the naming rights for the building. Elaine, of course, I don't need to go over her accomplishments. She's been recognized and honored nationally and internationally, won Canadian championships, competed all over the world. She's one of the highlights of Canadian figure skating in the last couple of decades, to say the least. And the fact that she hails from our own area and did all most of her training and practicing right here in the old Leo Boyven Community Center says a lot. And that the family's commitment and recognition of that goes towards this. I think the numbers in the paper as well, it's $500,000 for the naming rights. Absolutely incredible that they're supporting this to this extent. I also want to note that, and this was made very clear in the Recorder and Times as well, that the Leo Boyven name remains on the existing building that we are continuing to use and looking to even expand use for that, as we were seeing some successes there before the pandemic hit. So that will always be a very valuable part of the town of Prescott for recreation going forward. But also in the new building, we are honoring Leo as our great Canadian member of the Hockey Hall of Fame with a wall in the opening of the building. So Leo will be spelled out. That's the first thing you'll see when you enter the building, is Leo on the wall with bricks that are being sold now to the public. And there's going to be a real drive on that to sell those bricks in the weeks and months to come. And that'll be a phenomenal tribute to Leo. So he will be very much part of this new facility, will remain in the old building going forward. And we can't thank Leo enough for his great contributions to this community and just how much he's meant to all of us over the years. And that will be fully acknowledged in the new building. So I just did want to mention that briefly. And then just in terms of events and so forth, in the last couple of weeks, we had Police Services Board on the 29th, just last week. Fairly standard meeting, but I will note that there was some discussion on traffic issues and speeding in and around town. The OPP is heavily on that, as I think we've all seen the cruisers out there, and did actually pick up one local for stunt driving in the area that was becoming a little infamous in town, I would say, for a while. And the OPP made a point of noting that on their East Region communiques on social media, and it was mentioned again. So we just want people to be safe out there. It's not about punishing people, but it is about community safety. So please be safe out there in the roads in town, and don't drive to excessive speeds. It's not worth it. The risk is there, and we've got a lot of people out on the street right now walking. And as we move into the summer, we'll have a lot more kids out there when schools get out. So just please be safe out there, folks. I also want to note we did have a meeting of the police services boards and the mayors of the Grenville County communities involved in that process with the province right now, and the potential amalgamation of the police services boards. We did come up with, I think, is a basic agreement with the 5 municipalities that would see Prescott remain on its own with its independent police services board, the same as it is now, but cooperating with the others on a presentation to the province by the deadline. And Matt, remind me, on the deadline, was it June 7th or 17th? Something like that.
I believe it was the 7th.
So that is coming up shortly. The North Grenville CAO was tasked after that meeting to put the actual report together. Gary Dyke's done some work with AMO on policing in the past. I believe he's on the current AMO board addressing policing matters municipally. So we'll have something back to put the final touches on that in the next little while, and we'll report that back to council when we have it. But it looks like we've got a good agreement, and now we just, of course, have to convince the province of this. But the province has said all along that they're looking for solutions that are not one size fits all. And I think we've come up with some very good reasons why one size fits all in a Grenville County PSB amalgamating the 5 municipalities would not work well for us here. So good to see we've had good agreement on that. Did also want to note a housing meeting with United Counties on May 21st. Still kind of grinding through the process there, but we did address a number of planning recommendations that came forward from planners and CAOs from around the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. We should have something back very soon. I know I've said this many times. Trust me, we're all a little frustrated about how long this process is taking, but we should have some concrete plans of action in the very near future. We're finally rounding the final turn, I think. And I guess we had a planning advisory committee meeting on May 13th. I think that's just about everything the last couple of weeks, but I did want to note as well as a sad anniversary yesterday. It's been 3 years now since we lost our former member of Parliament, Gord Brown, good friend to many of us around the community, always a very sad day. And I just did want to note that. I was thinking of Gordy when we did the arena announcement, and nobody would have been happier than Gord. You couldn't get the guy off the ice. He would have loved to see us building that arena. And as Steve and I were talking afterwards, we could have had a great big Gord Brown, one of his charity hockey games here to really open up the building, and maybe we'll still be able to do that. But it's just a shame that Gord won't be there and wasn't there to see that announcement on Wednesday. He's somebody that would have been very happy to see us moving forward with the new rink. So I think that's everything from me this evening. So we'll move along with 11 on outside boards, committees, and commissions. And start, as always, with Councilor Burton.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Pretty exciting news for our community about the new recreational center that's going to be built. There's definitely lots of opportunities for investment. So I did want to mention that. Residents and community members and outside communities, if they'd like to invest in the recreational center, they can contact any of our fundraising committee members and or the town hall. So lots of interest out there, and even buying a brick, a brick for the Leo. The wording of the Leo is very simple to do, and you can have your name on a brick in our new recreational center. So pretty exciting news, and that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Burton. I will note we'll have a little more social media presence with regards to encouraging donations shortly. So everyone will know who to contact and what those opportunities are, because there's some great ones out there for all budgets. And we hope we can raise some more funding for this great new building we're constructing. Thanks so much for that update. Councilor Jansman, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. The BIA has not met since our last meeting, so nothing to report there, although they're always busy behind the scenes. The Planning Committee does have a meeting scheduled for next week, so nothing to really report there either. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councilor Jansman. Councilor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Walker House, Susan has an awful lot of things going on through Walker House, not at Walker House, but through Walker House. And if you were to call Susan on the phone or dial in on the internet, she can tell you everything that is available. I know a list came out today and it was quite extensive. I was very impressed with all the things that you can participate in through Walker House. The library is open for pickup. You could call into the library, give them an idea what you want. Perhaps it's an author. I'm reading my way through an author right now, so I just call in and tell them to give me 2 or 3 books from that author that I haven't read yet, and they have the list of what I've picked up. So it's a painless operation, and it's going very smoothly at the library. Shakespeare is on a bit of a hold. We were set to make an announcement on Shakespeare's birthday, which was the 23rd of April. However, with the provincial announcement shortly before that, we are holding off until we see what is going on with the next provincial announcement, which should be in, 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. And then we'll have some more information there. I'll leave it at that, Mayor Todd. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor McConnell. Councilor Ostrander, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Pretty quiet on the committee front. Of course, last Wednesday kind of stole everybody's thunder. It was a great day in the neighborhood, as Mr. Rogers would say, and we certainly were all smiles all around. It worked very well. And here's hoping that the next few months we can put the finishing touches on fundraising and some details and just have good bits of news coming along about it all the time. I see our brand new spanking new fire chief is with us tonight, and he's going to give us a little overview of his findings. So I won't steal his thunder on that. So that's about it for me.
Thanks very much, Councillor Ostrander. Councillor Shankar, please.
Thank you. I just want to state the same thing as most of my fellow councillors and Your Worship. A great day last week. Great news for our community and our neighboring municipalities, for the kids and for everyone. You know, like that whole recreational complex is going to be just a stepping stone, really, to future plans for our area. So I think it's going to be great. I'm on that fundraising committee, and I gotta say the generosity of our community is outstanding. Like I think we're pretty close to $3 million already that has been earmarked for it. I went to talk to a local business husband and wife team last week, and they were ready to hand me a check, and I had already just said, well, you can pay for it over 5 years, and they're like, oh, we wanted to give you a check today, and I'm like, well, let me look, you know. So it's a great story, and everyone wants to jump on board. And as Leanne said, you know, there's bricks available. There's any amount, you know, if you want to set up a lemonade stand and with fundraising going towards a rink, hey, let's do it. We'll take it. Every dollar counts. So other than that, that's kind of been the highlight of my last couple of weeks. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but never least, Councillor Young.
Thank you, Brett. We had a 3-hour meeting at St. Lawrence Lodge last Tuesday. And the only thing that I can think that I can report out of it is that the financials for the first 2 months, January and February, look very positive. So even with COVID, we're maintaining a positive bank account. So hopefully it will continue the rest of the year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks for your dedication there. 3 hours of meeting at the lodge. That doesn't sounds like a very full morning. Let's just leave it at that. Thanks everyone for the reports this evening, and thanks again for all the great teamwork and all the work on the fundraising. Everyone's contributed in various ways, and we've made something really special happen here. And we've really got a lot to look forward to in the weeks and months ahead as we formulate the final building plans and we get shovels in the ground in the not too distant future. So very exciting times. Thanks everyone. So moving along, item 12, we do have a few reports under staff this evening, and starting off with staff report 41-2021. That's our fire department report, and I'll welcome again our new chief. It's I keep looking at the badge there, Rennie, and looking for Brockville, and I don't see Brockville on there anymore. So that's good. So welcome again. It's fantastic to have you with us, and I know you've had a very busy first month and a bit now, so I'll just leave it over to you for your report for tonight.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'll just start out basically just a quick overview. Operationally, as the mayor alluded to, been very busy. We had 14 calls for service in my first 14 days. I thought there was going to be a mutiny at some point, and my stead as chief would be very short-lived. We had one structure fire in Edwardsburg Cardinal and a very large grass fire in Augusta. Very unfortunate incidents, obviously, in Spencerville, but our team worked very well with Chief Moore and his firefighters, and the same when we responded into Augusta for the large grass fire. I was very pleased how our people worked very highly skilled and well trained, and they worked together. So during the lockdown, unfortunately, we've suspended our training. We have 3 new firefighters, but our equipment is checked weekly. The trucks are checked, SCBA, all our breathing apparatus and things of that nature. So it's maintained in a state of readiness. We're certainly looking forward to some good news May 20th. Hopefully we can loosen some restrictions and allow some more training. Administrative Chief Morehouse was very helpful in assisting me in the transition. He gave me an overview of the fire department fleet, personnel, and our personal protective equipment. So I can say for sure, the level of respect that everyone has here for Barry is highly evident, and he's going to be missed. Under the administrative portion with Tracy Day, the administrative coordinator, she's assisted me in bringing me up to speed on budget policies and day-to-day operation of the department. I'd also like to say thank you to the town staff at Town Hall and other department staff members in the municipality have made me feel very welcome, assisted me with a few stupid questions I may have had, but very pleased with the support. So in the next few months, I'd like to assess our department apparatus, SCBA, and personal protective equipment. Still coming to get to know our budget and how things work here in the municipality. So the department itself, the building, I must say, definitely state of the art, a gem, and we're very, very lucky to have such a building that's been constructed for the future in mind. I walk around the building from time to time, looking at equipment on the trucks and things like that, and I'm just very pleased with the facility. I have attached the first quarter department report. It just briefly outlines calls for service, our activity, training, and anything of that nature. I would like to take the opportunity to just direct councils and the people at home their attention to our anniversaries of our fire department members. Chris Velkamp has 8 years, Tyler Savage 1 year, Andrew Scott 1 year, Brent Norton 40 years, so outstanding years of service. George Prosser 32 years, again George a well-known member of the department. Tim Marcus 5 years, Scott Stevenson 5 years, and John Henry who resigned from the department, but in January he did have 10 years. So I just wanted to make sure council and folks watching were aware. And one last thing, it's Emergency Preparedness Week. My apologies for not getting that in the report, but Tracy made sure that on the town website under emergency service, people at home or for research can go under that, bring up the emergency plan and preparedness, and there's links there regarding preparedness for our residents, 72-hour kits and things of that nature. So I think that's my report, Your Worship. I'm certainly open for questions.
Thanks very much, Chief, and thanks to all those with the department that I'm sure made you feel very welcome. And it's great to see those anniversaries as well. I mean, all the way from 1 year to 40 years with Brent, who's been around forever there, and just incredible service. And it just goes to show what a great department we have. So thanks again for joining us. Open it up for questions. And I did see Councillor Young had his hand up, right?
Thank you, Rainey. I was just curious, is the area still under a fire ban?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Young, we did remove the ban a few weeks ago with the municipality, because we did allow open, like our campfires are approved, chimeneas and things of that nature in town for our residents. So for cooking or for warmth, we just thought with COVID, instead of going an all-out ban, we would like our residents to be able to at least go outside with their families, and enjoy an approved, fireplace and spend some family time outside. So, because we don't allow open burning in the municipality that they would in rural areas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks very much, Councillor Young. Chief, other comments from members of council this evening? Councillor Burton, please.
Thank you. I did want to mention that Chief Rayner forgot to mention is George Prosser just retired after many years of service. So we'll hate to see him go, but definitely thank him for his dedication and many years of service. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for noting that, Councillor Burton. Other comments, questions? Seeing none, one thing I will note, COVID is really, with not meeting in person, we haven't been able to do the usual ceremony that we do at the fire department, but once a year to help hand out the ribbons and the long service medals and so forth. So it's be nice to finally get back to meeting in person to be able to do that. That's always a nice evening. It's a great way to honor our dedicated firemen for their long years. And of course, as Councillor Burton just mentioned, we do have George just retired, and of course we've lost Barry as well. So there are a lot of people there, and Brent Norton with the 40 years on there too. It'll be nice to be able to finally open up again and bring some people in and do some celebrating properly, where we can meet together again. And hopefully that's not too far off. So we'll definitely keep that on the list, on the to-do list when we do open up again. So thanks again, Rennie, and thanks for coming to join us here in Prescott. You're a great addition to the team, and look forward to working with you in the weeks, months, and years ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Take care, Chief.
With your permission, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to sign off. I have an officers meeting shortly.
Absolutely. No worries. You take care.
Okay, thank you for your time.
And moving on to item 12.2 this evening, we have staff report 42-2021. That's an update on Riverwalk Park and the planting down there from a couple of weeks ago. Nathan, I believe you have this one this evening.
Yeah, that's correct. Through you, Mayor Todd. So at one of the previous council meetings, we took forward a plan to plant various trees and shrubs in the Riverwalk Park to give it some more color and dimension. And council wanted us to relook at some of the species of trees that were chosen. So so there's a quantity of total of 40 trees that we had chosen to put in the park. And again, the trees and shrubs that were chosen were kind of to add more volume and height and color to the park. Part of the review of the trees also took into account the constraints that do exist within that park. And some of those are the underground infrastructure, such as electrical wires and conduit. So there's several different areas where wires and conduit will run for the lights and power within the park. There's also lots of stormwater pipes as well to convey stormwater off the area and to put the water into the river. And then there's also a large tieback system as well that is underground that takes care of that retaining wall at the river. And so with all those things, so some of the items that we take into consideration is that there's no trees that have roots that go too far into the ground. And then some of the other things is the underlying soils as well. So that kind of precludes us from choosing any plants or trees that have berries on them. And then the Mariners Club as well has a restrictive covenants that once we kind of finalize what trees and plants that we will choose here, that we'll go and have a consultation with the condo board there. And as they do have some restricted covenants, at least we need to advise them on what our plan is and what we're thinking on doing changes to the greenery within the park. So that said, we did originally had chosen 7 out of 40 species or 7 out of the 40 total trees were native. And so that was a percent of 18 that were native. And so we've gone and looked at the different styles, and we believe that we can get to a percent that's closer to 50% native species. So I think that's a nice increase, and it did kind of make us rethink what we were planting, and we'll go and we'll look at other things that we can plant there that are native to the area. The other thing that kind of could come into play as well is that there's a pretty high demand and supply issues on trees and shrubs right now. So again, we'll do our best to make sure that we locate the 50% native species for the park plantings. The other thing that this report also does talk about is the shade ideas, so shade sales that could be put into the park. And so there's some examples on attachment A. These are really would add more dimension to the park as well, and add offering of shade that, because it's still quite a new park, it doesn't really have shade options with trees, mature trees or anything like that. And so we're looking right now and just investigating the options. If there's a lot of kind of concrete benches that were throughout the park, and we're looking to see if those are structural or architectural features that we could potentially utilize for part of the shade structure. So those are kind of the main things that we're looking at. And then we'll make sure that we have something, we'll come back to council with some more details on what the shade structure could look like and some of the shading options as we move forward on this one. Unfortunately, the alternative section of the report is it's not for this report. We're not talking about pavement conditions, so I apologize for that. So again, there's lots of different options for the shade sales. They're very unique, and they really do add a lot of again, more dimension and color to the park that I think will make it look really nice with the river as a backdrop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard. I'll open it up for comments, questions from members of council this evening. Councilor Burton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I want to thank Nathan for going back and our horticulturist, Mr. Burton, Mr. Phil Burton. I think it's a great addition that we're doing the 50%. I think it will settle down some of the residents who wanted some native options in there, native tree options. I love the sale idea. I think it's really going to add some color and some pizzazz to the park, and utilize that whole concrete area of the park. And shade is definitely a must down there as well. So I think it's going to be a great addition to the park. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Burton. Open it up. More comments, questions on the report this evening and what's in the works at Riverwalk. I don't see no further comments, which is always good. Thanks so much for the good update on that, Nathan. Those shade sales will look fantastic down there. From what Councilor Burton mentioned, I couldn't say it better. It'll be a nice addition, and it's an extremely hot spot at certain times of the summer, and it's something that's needed down there. But and the other part of it, and this was mentioned when we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but just to emphasize the point again, it's a difficult place to plant much, simply because there's not a lot of depth of soil. We were building on top of old salty ground from the old that was the storage site for many years for the road salt in the wintertime. And of course, that did contaminate a little of the soils down there. So it's always going to be there's going to be a certain amount of challenge down there. So it's not that easy to pick shrubs and trees and so forth. So thanks for going back to it and looking at some native options and trying to do the best there to balance what can be done down there with what some want to be done down there. And I think this is a good compromise solution, and it's going to look very nice down there this summer. And the other thing that we have added, I think that was that completed last fall, Nathan, Matt, just on the watering, because that's always been an issue down there. We did get that. Well, that was finished last year, was it?
Correct.
So that'll make a difference as well, because we've always had a challenge keeping that site properly watered. So thanks again for the report. Last call for comments. Seeing none. And Nathan, you did say you'd bring forward a little more on the shade sales at some point when it's looking like you have a solid plan for how to put them in down there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're working with one of the probably premier companies that supply and install these to figure out exactly a little bit more details, and they can do renderings to kind of show the sun coming around at different heights and times of the day. So I think we want to look at that and make sure we get it positioned properly and get the right size and the right posts, and then we'll bring that back to council at another time to look at.
That's great. Thank you very much for that report this evening. So we'll move on to our final staff report tonight. That's 12.3 staff report 43-2021. That's our Centennial Pool Partnership with the YMCA this summer. And I want to welcome again onto the line tonight, Rob Adams, the CEO of the Y. I'm going to say Brockville, but I know that's not the Eastern Ontario. It's an amalgamated operation now. And it's good to have Rob on the line with us this evening. It's a great partnership that actually was interrupted by COVID last year because we were going down the line here. That was one of the last meetings I think we had in person before COVID hit in February of 2020. So it's good preparation. So it's great to get back to this. So with that, just welcome Rob again, and I'll read the recommendation tonight and then proceed with the staff report. Recommendation reads that council directs staff to develop and enter into a 2-year agreement with the YMCA of Eastern Ontario. Geez, all I had to do was read the recommendation to get the proper title there. For the programming at the Centennial Pool for 2021 and 2022, including clauses that address the ability to operate the pool due to COVID restrictions. I will note though that we've got 2 options to address here as well once we deal with this recommendation. So there may need to be an amendment, I believe. But at any rate, someone care to make that motion this evening to get this on the table? Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor McConnell. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So we've been really exploring partnerships and opportunities where we can work with someone that's an expert in their field when it's providing recreation and leisure. And this is a great example of one that we're able to bring forward to council for consideration. So obviously the YMCA in Eastern Ontario has had a long historic nature in this area, and really we look to them as the experts. And so we bring before you this evening both Rob Adams, who is the CEO of the Eastern Ontario YMCA. He'll talk a little bit about the programming. Then I was going to talk a little bit about what our options could look like for 2021 and 2022. And then finally, the implications from a financial perspective. So at this point, I think I'm going to pass it over to Rob. If you'd like, Rob, I can put up the presentation. And if you want to walk people through that, then I'd be more happy to do that.
That'd be great. Thanks, Matthew. Before I begin the presentation, though, your worth, I do want to express my congratulations to yourself and council and all the city staff and the stakeholders, fundraising committee for the announcement last week. I think, you know, an announcement like that in this region is going to be very, very huge and have a large impact. And even though the YMCA didn't submit an application, I know the circles that I carry and associate with across the province, it can't go understated how competitive that process was and how oversubscribed that process was. And so to be able to get awarded that money for that facility really speaks to the professionalism and the coordination of that whole project. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that. It was a very oversubscribed piece. And knowing what the arena's been named after, you know, there's a lot of stories right now about youth and mental health and some of the lack of activity for youth. And to be able to name that facility after a youth, it's very forward thinking, because I think it'll give other youth some inspiration to maybe achieve something in the future themselves. So congratulations on the naming of that facility too.
Thank you very much, Rob.
So I along with the report, I had presented this for the package just to kind of run through a little bit of the YMCA just in general from a historical perspective, some of the things that we're doing currently, and some of the things we've done through the pandemic. And then I'd be happy to answer any questions that council or your worship might have. As you can see, we've been serving the Brockville area for 160 years as of last year. And, you know, in 1860, that's when the Brockville YMCA was established. And that's only a few years after the YMCA in North America first came to be, and that was in Montreal. So the YMCA in Eastern Ontario, particularly in this region, was one of the first founding members of the YMCA in Canada, period. And so as you go through the historical perspective of things, you know, it hasn't come without its challenges. In 1981, you know, the Y almost became a thing of the past, but a mutual advocate for yourself, David Beatty, and a group of others came together to basically rescue the Y in 1981. But if you fast forward a little bit towards 2020, 2019, and into this year, we recognized that access, even though we're a charity, still might have been an issue for youth. And given the issues that youth were facing, we created a free teen night program on Friday nights. And prior to the week before the pandemic closed everything, we were averaging 180 teens per night with the average age of 15 and a half. But our first busing was to the Prescott area. And we were busing in about 40 kids from the Prescott area into that teen night program. From that teen night program, we took advantage of some federal dollars and launched a teen drop-in center in Brockville in September. And since that time, before with restrictions, we've been operating capacity to the point we opened up another space. And those same teens from Prescott have been attending that center as well, because we provide transportation for those who need it. So I just kind of went through that from the 100-year history. Next slide, please. So it just kind of goes again about how we're serving this area. To the right, you can see just the numbers that we provide on a yearly basis. We serve roughly 170,000 people in that facility per year, and that's for the people that have a membership card that scan in their data. It doesn't include our partnership agreements with other stakeholders or social service agencies or schools or day pass users. As a charity, many people don't understand that we don't turn anybody away regardless of circumstance. 25% of all of our users receive some sort of subsidy. No one is turned away from an inability to pay. 4% of our total membership reside in Prescott, locally, right in the township, right in the town. And that's roughly about 150 people at the time of closure. And I believe from the 2016 census, I may get this wrong, but I believe in the 2016 census, I believe the population was 4,000 people. And so that's roughly about 4% or 3% of the total population were actual members of the town of Prescott. Again, I talked about just the teen night programs and the average piece that we're doing. And to the left, there are just some of the things that we do within that area. Next slide, please. The other piece that many people don't understand is the amount of partnerships that we actually have in this area. We're much more than a brick and mortar building. We serve other rural populations like North Grenville. We ran a school program at a Linklater out of Gananoque, and we're currently in conversations with other municipalities. To the left, we organized programs and services and ran youth engagement surveys with other organizations. You may have heard of the Stingers program that at one point in time was almost at risk of not operating. We looked at taking over that program, but for the changes that were required, we chose to pay for the food for those individuals to come. And so it just shows you on the right, just the amount of partnerships that we do have with other organizations to get access to the YMCA programs and services that we have. And youth is a big part of that. So in the bold, you can see different partnerships that we have with youth. Next slide, please. So as Matthew spoke about, municipalities and YMCAs more and more are starting to partner up in terms of what they do together. They're recognizing that in some instances they were competing against one another. In some instances, they are realizing one is better at one thing than the other. One may be better at bricks and mortar, one might be better at program and delivery, so they started to partner. So this list just shows you small to mid-market YMCA's, which the YMCA of East Ontario currently is. We're about $11 million operation pre-COVID, and that it shows some municipalities of similar size and similar regions that all have partnership agreements with local YMCA's. Now, that could be management agreements in terms of operating and managing a municipal center, or that's just purely managing programs and services that the city no longer wants to do, or that they're not providing yet, and they would wish a YMCA to come in and do that. Next slide, please. So particularly in aquatics, just to reiterate, we've been doing aquatics for over 100 years. We're seen as the experts. We're also the largest childcare provider in Canada. And the first accredited swimming lesson was created by the YMCA. So when we started talking about aquatics beyond just guarding a pool, we looked at what sorts of accreditation services and lessons can be offered in the town of Prescott. And that's why we started to go down this road. Next slide, please. Aquatics program comes in many forms beyond just managing a pool. We have swimming lessons. We have aquatic certifications like Bronze Cross, Bronze Medallion, aquatics fitness classes, Swim to Survive programs for schools. So it's one of the key areas that the Y operates and oversees. Next slide, please. The other piece is, and I know it's not to be bring attention to something that's in a negative light, but the one thing that we're recognizing across this region is the lack of awareness that swimming is. Being so close to the water and many bodies of water, not just backyard pools and municipal pools, but just the river itself and lakes and rivers that are available for those people that swim. We feel it's our role to advocate and to try to resolve issues that we see. And one issue we see is that there's more and more people who aren't taking water safety as seriously as they should. And quite frankly, I think people have started to forget that it's an essential life skill to have. It's not something that you just schedule in between hockey lessons and soccer and music lessons as an activity. It should be something that each and every person is afforded to have, so they understand the importance of knowing how to swim and be safe in the water. And you know, you're seeing more and more things like lifeguarding shortages and just drownings are increasing because of that. Next slide, please. So very quick run through for sure, but I just kind of wanted to leave it open to council members to ask questions over this general overview.
Thanks again, Rob, for providing that summary of the Y's great involvement in the community and in Brockville, of course, and what's on tap here. So yeah, open it up. Any comments, questions for Mr. Adams this evening from members of council? Councilor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. As Rob mentioned, the Y locally has been doing this for 160 years plus, which is incredible. And as a council, as a town, I don't think we really need to be reinventing the wheel. The wheel is the Y. They have expertise on things. And I think the pool is a good example of where we can start with them. And I'm sure there's other places that we can go, like the Leo Boyven with different programs that we run down there. Possibly a reemergence of the youth club in town under the YMCA. Anyway, I look forward to the Y coming to Prescott, and I think it's going to be a very good marriage for both of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor McConnell. And that's exactly what we were talking about right before COVID shut us down for a year with the youth center and working with the Leo with different bringing in groups and kids groups. And the pandemic really cost us there. But I'm sure we'll look at those options again in the near future if they haven't already been talked about with staff while they've set this up. So, Mr. Armstrong, did you want to continue your report now?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So when you take a look at kind of how I've set this up, is really what we're intending to do is the full basket of services, really option B. And that's where we would like to get to. whether we can get to that in 2021, that will really largely depend on COVID restrictions, that sort of thing. How close can we get the instructor to the students when we're doing swimming lessons, and really that's what we're trying to say here. And so option B will be what the entire agreement will be based on. But if we're not able to do swimming lessons, then option A will be kind of our fallback position. And then if we're not able to do the full amount of time of option A, then obviously we might end up kind of focusing on the July-August timeframe if we're not able to open as early as we hope to in June. So really that's how we're working on setting this up. And as you can see, with the estimated cost being just shy of $60,000, that's inclusive of all of the salary costs, the training, the everything that the Y brings to the table. That is right in line with what we have in the budget and what we've expended in previous years when it comes to salaries, training, that sort of thing. So really no cost difference, and I think a really excellent outcome in terms of the product that we would be able to offer the town of Prescott, the residents here, as well as the surrounding communities. So that's kind of how we've brought it forward. And so I just wanted to make sure that council doesn't have to decide between option A and B. Really, option B is what we're going with. And then if we can't provide lessons, then we'll move to kind of option A, but all of those will be outlined specifically in the contract, and really it comes down to what we can and can't do in terms of COVID. So without further ado, and that's really what we're looking at this point. The one other point is that we did have a project this year to replace the pool pump, as well as address some needed maintenance on the filter. We are happy to report that those have come in under budget. And kudos to our operations group to looking to see we're able to reuse the pool filter vessel, and so that was excellent. And then just be able to replace the internals of that. So that really worked well, and so that's moving in the right direction. And then more than happy to answer anything in relation to the partnership or the agreement. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. Thanks very much, Matt. I just would ask, maybe we could, just to make it clear, it is option B, just a friendly amendment to the recommendation then. 2-year agreement with the YMCA of Eastern Ontario for the Preparedness Town, just preferring option B, something like that. Lindsay, help me out. I'm floundering here.
Sorry, to you, Mr. Mayor. I think if that's what you'd like to put in, I think that makes sense to put in there. Making use of option B, that would work. I think that's clear.
Sure. If the mover and the seconder are okay with that, we could just add that. You do that as a friendly amendment.
And I think perhaps Mr. Adams had a point.
Rob?
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. Through your worship, I just wanted to also add that in terms of the services that we also want to provide, we have our own software package and POS system as well, that in order to take pressure off of staff, all of that sort of online registration and swimming lesson registration, all that stuff would be handled by us and not town staff. So it's just to kind of alleviate that portion too. I forgot to mention that as well.
Thanks very much for that added information. So everyone okay with the report? Any further comments? Councillor McConnell, please.
Well, thank you, Mayor Todd. I was just thinking, when I used to walk through the Centennial Park while the pool was in operation, not last summer, but obviously the summer before, there was a fitness program. I noticed some ladies, I believe, I'm not going to swear to this, but I believe it was running through a Walker House, sort of aquatics fitness type of thing. Would that still be available? I noticed the Y offers aquatic fitness classes, would that still be able to be run through Walker House for Prescott if we are able to do that type of thing this summer?
It was actually run internally by our lifeguards. I don't believe Walker House organized it, but I think Susan was involved in it and as a member taking part, but I think it was internal. But yeah, Rob, please.
Yeah, so we would have intention to add that as our part of our complement. And because of our experience within COVID restrictions and capacity issues, we haven't been really using volunteers this year yet, just because of that sort of thing. So depending on where the pandemic is at and what we're allowed to do for public health, we would probably prefer to use our internal staff and then maybe work on a volunteer partnership moving possibly after that.
But it would be available if it can be available.
Yeah, like we would have intention to run that program. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Aquafit has been historically quite popular down there, so it is something that I think would be very much interested in continuing to offer. Lee's right on that.
Especially since we heated the pool.
Yeah, absolutely. Made a big difference. Councillor Young, please.
Just looking at option B with the total number of hours, that seems to me to be very, very similar to what we ran in 2019 in terms of the operation of the pool over the summer season. Is it not?
I believe it's very similar, correct.
Yeah, thank you. I think people would be happy to know that the COVID allowing, it will be back to normal operations.
Yeah, fingers crossed for sure. Any further comments on the report and what's been presented by Mr. Adams this evening? I just have one quick question myself, just on the budget. We did bring in an attendant last year that helped look after the beach area and some added work around the pool and so forth. It was very well received. I think it was very successful. Is that being included in the budget again this year for an attendant?
It doesn't come from the pool budget, but absolutely we are making sure that we're able to address those requirements as well.
Excellent. Sounds good. I know there are a lot of people down there. The employees did an excellent job. They're very, very well received and appreciated by the regulars down at the beach. Any further comments? Seeing none, I will call the vote on the amended motion. All those in favor? Motion is approved. I want to thank staff and Mr. Adams for putting this together. Sadly, it's a year late like everything else, thanks to COVID, but it's fantastic to see this moving forward. And thanks again, Rob, for all of this and for all the discussions about what we can do together. These sorts of regional and community partnerships are a big thing for us, as we've seen with the arena, and anything we can do with the YMCA of Eastern Ontario to this and in the future. Hopefully this is just the start of a beautiful relationship.
I would tend to agree. Council has just set a very good example for its other municipal regional partners as well. We have a great partnership in North Grenville and yourselves. And I do want to thank town staff and Matthew, Lindsay, and Nathan. They've made this process very, very easy. And it was a great collaboration right from the get-go. So I just want to thank those three for sure.
Yeah, great stuff. And I do hope others are taking note of this as well, as you mentioned, because there's a great resource that we have in our YMCA locally. And the more we take advantage of it, I think the more the whole region wins. So thanks again for that. And thanks to staff for helping put all this together. Take care, Rob. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
So we're on to item 13, resolutions, none this evening. 14, bylaws, none this evening. 15, new business. Does any member of council have any new business to bring forward tonight? Seeing no. 16, notices of motion. Does any member of council have a notice of motion to present tonight? Seeing no, and that takes us to 17, mayor's proclamation, and we do have one this evening. Just while I pull it up. This is a proclamation for National Harm Reduction Day. Proclamation reads, whereas International Harm Reduction Day aims to promote evidence passed on public policy, practice, and human rights, and whereas harm reduction approaches involving working with the person using substances so they use in a safer way without expecting them to stop using. This approach recognizes that some people may not wait or be ready to stop completely, and whereas harm reduction services allows people the opportunity to connect with available community resources, therefore the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Prescott does hereby recognize Friday, May 7th, 2021 as National Harm Reduction Day in the town of Prescott. And of course, that's dated the 3rd of May 2021 and signed by myself. I did want to note that other communities in the area are passing this motion. I believe Edwardsburg Cardinal did it last week. I think it's been before Brockville, and it's been distributed quite broadly by the Brockville Municipal Drug Strategy Group, which is just started in recent months and has really become a strong advocate on this very important issue in the area. And I'll just note also that I've been in discussions with Mayor Malenka in Augusta, and also our own councillor Mike Ostrander here tonight on resurrecting and really getting our own municipal drug strategy going again, and possibly entering into partnerships and arrangements with what's happening in the city of Brockville now, because that's another area I think where we're very much stronger acting regionally than we are acting on our own. And there is a potential for a good partnership there. I talked to Mike last week again about this, and he has agreed to be involved with the MDS again. We are basically looking for a chair, I think, is to be very blunt about it. So we're moving forward on that. We've got to set a meeting up to discuss it. It's very timely right now. I see the health unit just put a news bulletin out today about a spike in overdoses as well. So this is a very, very pressing issue with the challenges with COVID the last year have only made it more important to deal with and to address in an open fashion. So I salute those people involved with the Brockville Municipal Drug Strategy, and thank them for looking to include us on that. I think there's some good things we can hopefully do in partnering together in the weeks ahead. So we'll bring that back for more from council after we have those initial meetings and just see what the possibilities are, and possibly present back to council again on the whole municipal drug strategy effort, both ourselves and what could be done in a partnership, because it's been a couple of years now since we've been very heavily active with the MDS, and I think it's really time to revive that effort given the current circumstances. It's some sad stories in the news these days, and that press notice that went out with the health unit today really kind of underscored how important this initiative is. So moving along, all we have left, a period for media questions was in here. I assume we have no media on the line. Takes us right to 19, closed session. We do have a closed session tonight with a couple of items. Recommendations that council move into closed session at 7:38 p.m. to address matters pertaining to 18.1 approval of closed session minutes and 18.2 purchase and sale. That's both under section 239 2C of the Municipal Act, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And we're asking that the CAO, clerk, interim director of operations, economic development officer, and deputy clerk remain in the room. Before I ask for a mover, and that, does anyone want to break tonight, or do you want to just go right into this? Hopefully we're not going to be too long with it. Seeing as everybody's good, so we'll move right into the closed session. So if I could have a mover on that closed session recommendation, moved by Councilor Ostrander, seconded by Councilor Young. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? So we'll move into closed session. For those watching,